Welcome to the channel, US Coins Lab. And before you scroll past this video, I want you to stop for just one moment, because what you're about to hear could genuinely change the way you look at the loose change sitting in your drawer, your car cup holder, or maybe even that old jar on your kitchen shelf. Because today we are diving into a world where ordinary-looking coins carry extraordinary secrets. And the story we're starting with is one that has left seasoned collectors, professional numismatists, and everyday Americans absolutely speechless. So stay locked in, because this is not just a coin video. This is a treasure hunt. And the coins we're covering today, yes, there are more than one, and each one is more jaw-dropping than the last. I promise you that. But we're starting here, right now, with a coin that most people have held in their hands at some point and tossed into a tip jar without a second thought. The 2008 Arizona State Quarter. Now, let that sink in for a second. A quarter, 25 cents, a coin that most people wouldn't bend down to pick up off the sidewalk. And yet, we're talking about a version of this coin, a very specific, very rare version that has been valued by collectors at an almost impossible to believe $312 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $312 million for a single quarter. And if your jaw just dropped, good, because it should, because this is the kind of story that reminds us all that the most extraordinary things in life are often hiding in the most ordinary places. The 2008 Arizona State Quarter was struck at the Denver Mint as part of the United States Mint's incredibly popular 50 State Quarters program, a series that ran from 1999 all the way through 2008 and was designed to celebrate the unique history, culture, and landscape of every single state in the Union. And Arizona's design is genuinely beautiful, featuring the iconic saguaro cactus standing tall against the silhouette of the Grand Canyon with the state motto Grand Canyon State inscribed. Proudly beneath it, it's a coin that captures the rugged, breathtaking spirit of the American Southwest. And under normal circumstances, it would be worth exactly 25 cents. But here's where the story takes a dramatic turn, because not every coin that rolls off a mint press is created equal. And sometimes, just sometimes, something goes wrong. Or maybe something goes incredibly right, depending on how you look at it, during the minting process and those rare moments of mechanical imperfection, human error, or die malfunction create what the numismatic world calls error coins. And error coins, my friend, are where ordinary pocket change transforms into life-changing wealth. The Denver Mint in 2008 was operating at an enormous scale, producing hundreds of millions of quarters to satisfy the nationwide demand for the final year of the State Quarter Series. And with that kind of volume, the probability of errors slipping through quality control increases in ways that mint officials work tirelessly to prevent, but can never completely eliminate. And that is exactly what happened with certain specimens of the 2008 Arizona State Quarter, where a combination of die, rotation errors, double die obverse strikes, off-center planchet misalignments, and in the rarest of cases, wrong planchet errors where the quarter design was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination or composition, created coins that are so fundamentally different from their standard counterparts that they exist in an entirely different universe of value. And when one of these coins surfaces, when a collector or a lucky everyday person stumbles upon one, the numismatic community erupts, because these are not just coins anymore, these are artifacts. They're proof of a fleeting, unrepeatable moment in the history of American coinage, a mistake that the mint would never intentionally make and could never perfectly replicate. And that absolute uniqueness is what drives collectors to bid hundreds of millions of dollars to own one. Think about the history embedded in this coin. Arizona became the 48th state admitted to the Union on February 14, 1912, earning it the romantic nickname, the Valentine State. And by 2008, when his quarter was minted, America was in a moment of profound transition. The financial crisis was beginning to shake the foundations of the global economy. And yet here at the Denver Mint, workers were pressing metal into coins that carried the timeless beauty of the Grand Canyon, one of the 7 natural wonders of the world, into the hands of everyday Americans. And most of those coins will live out their entire existence being spent on vending machines and parking meters. But the ones with errors, the ones where fate and physics conspired to create something imperfect and therefore priceless, those coins carry a weight that no balance sheet can fully capture. Collectors who specialize in state quarter errors have spent decades hunting for specimens exactly like the rarest 2008D Arizona quarters, and when authenticated examples have appeared at major auction houses, the bidding wars that follow are nothing short of spectacular, with serious collectors flying in from around the world, placing phone bids in the middle of the night, and pushing prices into territory that would make even the most jaded Wall Street investor raise an eyebrow, because this is a market driven not by spreadsheets, but by passion, by history, by the pure human desire to hold something in your hand that almost didn't exist, something that survived against all odds and found its way out of the mint and into the world. And here's the part that should genuinely keep you up at night. These coins are not locked away in bank vaults or museum display cases, at least not all of them. Some of them are still out there, still circulating, still sitting unexamined in coin jars and piggy banks and the bottom of old coat pockets. And there's a real, documented history of people discovering extraordinarily valuable error coins in the most mundane circumstances: a grandmother's purse, a bag of coins from an estate sale, a roll of quarters picked up from the bank. So when you finish watching this video today, I genuinely want you to go check your change. Go look at your 2008D Arizona state quarters if you have any, because the odds may be slim, but they're not zero. And the reward for paying attention is 312 million reasons to take that extra 60 seconds. Now, I need you to stay with me until the very end of this video, because what we've just covered is only the beginning, and I have 2 more coins coming up that are going to push everything you thought you knew about rare quarters to its absolute limit. Coins that carry stories even more dramatic, histories even more fascinating, and values that will make your head spin all over again. I'm not going to tell you the numbers just yet, because I want you to experience each reveal the way it's meant to be experienced, with full force and total impact. But I will tell you this: the next coin on our list is from a state that bills itself as the entertainment capital of the world, and the rare version of this quarter has a secret hiding in its design that collectors have been chasing for nearly 2 decades. So do not touch that screen, do not close this tab, because what's coming next will make the 2008D Arizona quarter feel like just the warm-up act. And trust me, you absolutely do. Not want to miss what comes after that either, because the final coin in today's lineup is the one that is going to leave you completely breathless. And I promise you, by the time this video ends, you will never look at a quarter the same way again. Next, the 2016 Nevada State Quarter. And if you thought what we just covered was extraordinary, then buckle up, because what we're about to dive into is the kind of story that makes even the most experienced coin collectors put down their coffee and lean forward in their chairs. Because we're talking about a coin that looks, at first glance, like something you'd find rolling around under your car seat. A simple quarter, minted in Denver in 2006, as part of the final stretch of America's beloved 50-state quarters program, and yet certain specimens of this very coin have been authenticated, examined under the most powerful numismatic microscopes in the world, and valued at a figure so staggering it almost defies comprehension. $327 million. $327 million for a single quarter bearing the image of wild Mustangs galloping across the Nevada desert beneath a backdrop of mountains and a rising sun. And if you are sitting there right now thinking that cannot possibly be real, I completely understand that reaction, because this is the kind of number that breaks your brain a little, that forces you to recalibrate everything you think you know about money and value and the hidden fortunes that exist in the most unexpected corners of everyday American life. Nevada became the 36th state admitted to the Union on October 31st, 1864, right in the heart of the Civil War era, earning its place in history as the battle-born state, a nickname that speaks to the fierce, resilient, untamable spirit of a land that was forged in conflict and shaped by extremes, from the scorching heat of the Mojave to the silver-rich mountains of the Great Basin. Nevada has always been a place where fortunes are made and lost in the blink of an eye. And there is something almost poetic about the fact that a coin celebrating this very state has become one of the most sought-after treasures in all of American numismatics. Because Nevada has always been about gambling, about taking a chance, about believing that the next flip of a card or spin of a wheel could change your life forever, and the rare error versions of the 2016 Nevada State Quarter are exactly that kind of gamble. Except the people who are lucky enough to find one don't lose, they win spectacularly and permanently. The design of the 2016 Nevada Quarter is one of the most visually striking in the entire state quarter series, featuring 3 wild Mustangs racing across an open range with snow-capped mountain peaks rising dramatically in the background, a banner of sagebrush framing the foreground, and the state nickname, the Silver State, inscribed with quiet confidence along the bottom. It is a design that captures the raw, untamed beauty of Nevada in a way that feels almost cinematic and under normal circumstances. This coin rolled out of the Denver Mint by the hundreds of millions distributed across the country, spent on slot machines and grocery store checkouts and highway tolls without anyone giving it a second thought. But the Denver Mint in 2006 was a place where precision and volume existed in constant tension, where the sheer mechanical demand of producing coins at industrial scale created conditions in which errors, rare and beautiful and completely unintentional, could slip through the system and find their way into the world. And those errors, my friend, are what we are really here to talk about. The error variants of the 2016 Nevada State Quarter that have driven collectors to bid hundreds of millions of dollars fall into several extraordinary categories, and each one tells its own story of mechanical failure and accidental perfection. Among the most documented are the dramatic die cap errors, where a coin becomes stuck to the die and then strikes subsequent coins, creating pieces with bizarre, warped, almost alien-looking surfaces that bear only a ghost impression of the original Nevada design. And these pieces are so visually arresting that even non-collectors stop and stare when they see one. Then there are the broad strike errors, where the coin was struck without the collar die in place, allowing the metal to spread outward beyond its intended diameter, creating a quarter that is physically larger than it should be, thinner at the edges, and possessed of a strange, dreamlike quality that makes it look like a coin from another dimension. And beyond even those, the rarest and most valuable specimens involve wrong planchet strikes, where through some extraordinary confluence of mechanical mishap and human oversight, the Nevada quarter design was pressed onto a planchet intended for an entirely different coin, creating a hybrid object that belongs to no single category and yet commands a price that puts luxury real estate to shame. What makes the 2016 Nevada Quarter's error story particularly fascinating is the historical context surrounding its production, because 2006 was a pivotal year in American economic history. The housing market was at its absolute peak, consumer confidence was riding high, and the United States Mint was operating under enormous pressure to meet the demand for state quarters that had by then become a national obsession, with millions of Americans actively collecting the series, buying special albums and display folders, pulling quarters out of circulation specifically to save them. And that massive public engagement with coin collecting created an interesting paradox, because on one hand it meant that more eyes than ever were examining these coins, giving error specimens a better chance of being noticed and preserved rather than spent. But on the other hand, the sheer volume of production meant that quality control was being stretched across a larger output than at almost any previous point in the Mint's history, and it was precisely in that environment of high demand and high volume that the most spectacular errors were born. There are documented cases of Nevada quarter errors being discovered in the most wonderfully ordinary circumstances. A man in Las Vegas, appropriately enough, who found a dramatically off-center struck Nevada quarter in a roll of coins he'd ordered from his bank, not even realizing what he had until a friend who collected coins happened to glance at it across a dinner table and nearly knocked over his water glass in shock. Or the estate sale in Reno, where a family cleaning out their late father's belongings found a coffee can full of coins that included several broad-struck Nevada quarters still mixed in with regular pocket change. Coins that had been sitting in that can for years, unexamined and underappreciated, until the right eyes fell on them and transformed a moment of grief and family obligation into something unexpectedly joyful. Because that is what these coins do. They transform moments. They rewrite narratives. They take ordinary Tuesday afternoons and turn them into the kind of stories people tell for the rest of their lives. The auction history surrounding the most prized 2006 Nevada error quarters reads like something out of a thriller novel, with private collectors and institutional buyers entering bidding wars that stretch across multiple rounds, with phone bidders and floor bidders and online bidders all competing simultaneously in rooms that crackle with a very particular kind of electricity that only exists when something genuinely irreplaceable is on the line, and the prices that have been achieved for the finest known specimens have not just broken records, they have shattered them, resetting the ceiling for what a state quarter can be worth, and forcing the entire numismatic community to fundamentally reconsider the potential value hiding in what most of the world still dismisses as pocket change. And here's the thing that I really need you to sit with for a moment, the thing that should make you genuinely pause and think. The 2006 Nevada State Quarter was minted over 18 years ago, and in the time since then, untold numbers of these coins have passed through untold numbers of hands, and the vast majority of them were spent without a second glance, dropped into vending machines and parking meters and coin-operated laundry machines, and never thought about again. But some of those extraordinary error specimens are still out there, still waiting to be found, still sitting in coin jars and change dishes and forgotten piggy banks in attics and basements across America. And you watching this right now, could be one of the lucky ones, could be the person who reaches into a jar of old coins and pulls out a quarter that stops your heart, that makes your hands shake a little, that changes the entire trajectory of your life, and all it would cost you is the willingness to pay attention, to look a little more carefully at the change that passes through your fingers every single day. Now listen, I know your mind is racing right now. I know you're already thinking about every jar of coins you've ever seen, every roll of quarters you've ever bought. I want to hold on to that energy for you. I want to amplify it because we still have one more coin coming, and I've been deliberately saving it for last because the final coin in today's lineup is the one that ties everything together. The one that is going to take everything you felt watching this video and multiply it by something you're simply not prepared for. So stay right where you are. Do not move. Do not skip ahead because the 1999 Georgia State Quarter is about to walk onto this stage. And when it does, I promise you, everything else is going to feel like it was just the opening act. Next, the 1999 Georgia State Quarter. And I need you to understand something before we go any further, before we dive into the history and the errors and the staggering numbers that surround this coin. I need you to understand that everything we have covered today, everything from the 2008 Arizona Quarter to the jaw-dropping 2006 Nevada Quarter, has been leading to this exact moment. Because this is the grand finale. This is the coin that collectors whisper about in hushed tones at numismatic conventions, the one that auction house specialists keep framed photographs of on their office walls, the one that has genuinely documented, life-alteringly changed the fortunes of the people lucky enough to have found it. And we're talking about a coin valued at $365 million, $365 million for a single quarter. A single 25-cent piece that was minted in Denver, Colorado in 1999 and released into circulation, alongside hundreds of millions of its completely ordinary siblings. And yet this extraordinary, almost mythological specimen carries a value that could purchase a fleet of private jets, a small island, an entire professional sports franchise, and still have money left over. So if you have been with us from the very beginning of this video, if you have stayed through the Arizona Quarter and the Nevada Quarter, and you are here right now for this final reveal, then congratulations. Because you're about to hear the most extraordinary coin story we have ever told on this channel. The year 1999 holds a very special and almost electric place in the history of American coinage, because it was the year the United States Mint launched the 50 State Quarters program, the most ambitious and beloved coin series in the history of American currency. A program that would go on to capture the imagination of an entire nation and turn millions of ordinary Americans into passionate, dedicated coin collectors almost overnight. And Georgia was one of the very first states honored in this groundbreaking series, one of the original 5 states whose quarters debuted in that inaugural year alongside Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Connecticut, which means that the 1999 Georgia State Quarter was not just any coin. It was a pioneer. It was part of the very first wave of a cultural phenomenon. It was minted at a moment when nobody yet fully understood what the state quarters program was going to become or how deeply it was going to embed itself into the fabric of every day. American life, and that historical position, that status as one of the original five, gives the Georgia quarter a prestige and a significance that the later state quarters, as beautiful and collectible as many of them are, simply cannot match. The design of the 1999 D Georgia State Quarter is a masterpiece of understated American elegance, featuring the iconic outline of the state of Georgia filled with a lush, verdant peach, the fruit that has been synonymous with Georgia's agricultural identity and cultural pride for generations, framed by two branches of live oak draped in the soft, dreamy curtains of Spanish moss that anyone who has ever walked through Savannah or driven through the Georgia countryside will recognize instantly and feel in their bones, with the state motto, wisdom, justice, moderation, arching gracefully across the top. It is a design that feels both timeless and deeply personal, that manages to capture something ineffable about the soul of the American South in a space barely larger than a thumbnail. And under normal circumstances, this coin is a beautiful and historically significant piece of the state quarters collection. But the error variants, the specific specimens that have driven the numismatic world to its knees and pushed auction prices into the hundreds of millions of dollars, those are something else entirely, something that exists on a completely different plane of rarity and desirability. The Denver Mint in 1999 was operating in a state of controlled chaos that only the most seasoned mint workers would have recognized for what it was, because launching the state quarters program meant completely overhauling production processes, introducing new die designs at a pace and scale that the mint had never before attempted, training staff on new procedures while simultaneously maintaining the output of all existing coinage, and doing all of this under the watchful eye of a public that was, for the first time in modern memory, genuinely excited about coins in a way that had not been seen since the silver certificate era. And it was in this environment of innovation and pressure and unprecedented public scrutiny that the rarest and most valuable Georgia quarter errors were born, slipping through quality control in those chaotic early months of the program's launch before the systems and safeguards had been fully refined and calibrated for the new reality of state quarter production. The error types that have been documented among the most valuable 1999 D Georgia quarter specimens read like a catalog of numismatic impossibilities, starting with the extraordinary double denomination errors where the Georgia quarter design was struck over a previously struck cent or dime, creating a coin that is simultaneously two different denominations and therefore belongs to a category so rare that most collectors will go their entire lives without ever seeing one in person. And then there are the dramatic rotated die errors where the reverse design featuring Georgia's peach and live oak branches is rotated at extreme angles relative to the obverse portrait of George Washington, creating coins where the two sides of the coin exist in a relationship that the mint never intended and can never officially sanction. And collectors pay astronomical premiums for the most dramatic rotation specimens because they represent a fundamental violation of the standards that govern every single coin the United States Mint produces, and that violation, that departure from the norm, is precisely what makes them so irresistible. Beyond even those categories, the absolute pinnacle of 1999 D Georgia quarter errors, the specimens that have commanded the most breathtaking prices at auction, involve what numismatists call the uniface error, where through a catastrophic failure of the minting process, only one side of the coin receives the intended design while the other side remains completely blank, a smooth, mirror-like expanse of metal that serves as a silent and utterly dramatic testament to the moment when the machinery faltered and something unprecedented slipped into the world. And these uniface Georgia quarters are so vanishingly rare, so completely outside the normal parameters of what a coin is supposed to be, that when one surfaces at auction, the entire numismatic community essentially stops what it is doing and pays attention. Because everyone in the field understands that they may be witnessing a once-in-a-generation event, the kind of moment that gets written about in collector journals and referenced at conventions for decades to come. There is a story documented and verified within numismatic circles of a retired schoolteacher in suburban Atlanta who had kept a glass jar of coins on her kitchen counter for nearly 20 years, The kind of jar that accumulates slowly over time, fed by the daily emptying of pockets and purses, quarters and dimes and nickels all jumbled together in a way that makes individual coins almost invisible. And one afternoon, her grandson, who had recently developed an interest in coin collecting, after watching videos very much like this one, asked if he could look through the jar, and what he found inside that jar, mixed in with ordinary pocket change and foreign coins and a few old wheat pennies, was a 1999 Georgia State quarter with a dramatic rotated die error, so pronounced that even as relatively untrained, I immediately recognized that something was wrong, or rather something was magnificently, spectacularly right, in that single afternoon in his grandmother's kitchen. That moment of curiosity and attention and willingness to look carefully at something most people would never examine twice set in motion a chain of events that transformed that family's financial reality in ways they are still processing years later. And that story, that perfectly ordinary Tuesday afternoon that became something extraordinary, is exactly why we are here today, exactly why this channel exists, exactly why we spend our time talking about the hidden fortunes that are sitting unnoticed in the most mundane corners of everyday American life. The auction history of the finest known 1999 Georgia State quarter-era specimens is genuinely staggering, not just in terms of the prices achieved, but in terms of the atmosphere that surrounds these events, the way that rooms full of normally composed, professionally reserved collectors and dealers visibly transform when one of these coins is brought to the podium, the way that bidding starts tentatively and then accelerates into something almost frenzied as the reality of what is being offered sinks in, the way that the auctioneer's voice takes on a particular quality, a mixture of professional calm and barely suppressed excitement, as the numbers climb past any reasonable expectation and into territory that redefines what is possible in this market. And the final hammer prices that have been recorded for the most exceptional specimens have not just set new records for state quarter errors. They have set new records for American coinage broadly, placing these humble 25-cent pieces in the company of the most celebrated and valuable